Hello everyone and welcome to today's SANS webcast, Predicting Cybersecurity Trends in 2016, sponsored by Lancope. My name is Carol Auth and I will be moderating today's webcast. Today's featured speaker is TK Keanini, Chief Technology Officer at Lancope. If during the webcast you have any questions for TK, please enter them into the questions window located on the GoToWebinar interface. We will be answering them during the Q&A session at the end of the presentation. And with that, I'd like to hand the webcast over to TK.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I hope my audio is coming through clearly. And if you hear any snoring in the background, it's because I have two French bulldogs that are snoring in the background. So it's not just me falling asleep. All right. So let's see. All right. So here's our agenda for the day. A quick intro, and then we'll go through the retrospective to the predictions we made in 2015. I think it's important to do that to get a scorecard to see how right or wrong we were and where the trends actually took us in 2015. From there, we'll look at some of the trends and some of the highlights in what we think is going to happen in 2016. This again is, based on things we're seeing out there, sometimes not so visible to maybe the common eye. So hopefully this will be something that's useful to you. And then we'll definitely go into questions and answers. So a little bit of background, just because I've lived an extraordinary life so far. So born and raised in Hawaii, and that's where Keanini comes from. It's my last name is Hawaiian. And I moved essentially to California because I was a musician. Didn't make a whole lot of money, but had a lot of fun being a musician. I actually applied myself to computers, taught myself how to program, and joined a game company, a video game company called Vertibun Software, where all through the 90s we built games for young people who were just getting familiar with computers. It was a great time. I went to go work for Cisco Systems. I learned a lot there. Got recruited out of there to actually build the online trading system for Morgan Stanley. And then when online trading kind of took a dip, I went to start a company called nCircle with vulnerability management. Later to be acquired by Tripwire. And then I started at Lancope about 2 years ago. So that's kind of the history so far, and hopefully it gives you a little bit of context to at least my mental model and the predictions that we're going to be talking about in this webinar. So let's go and essentially look at some of the things we predicted in 2015. I think it's again important that that we look at I think we were pretty on par with what happened. I think we'll go through this, but I think there's evidence in all of these categories to suggest that we got these things pretty much right. So on the term malware essentially comes from the extension that when credit card fraud happens, there's sort of this workforce called cash mules. So we looked at this sort of physical space and how it would apply in this particular scenario. The idea here is that attackers, for the most part, when it comes to malware, the idea is that the victim of this computer isn't actually a participatory, meaning they're being violated without their action, without knowing. But this is an area where we know that attackers have become even more sophisticated, and frankly, having the user of that system actually buy into it and get cut into some of the profits is basically an expansion on this area. Now, it's incredibly hard to track here because this action, let's say you're the user of a computer, it's connected to the internet. You get an offer that says, hey, if you just let me use 10% of your connectivity and CPU, we'll deposit some fraction of a Bitcoin into your wallet. And the idea that here, now that the victim is actually participatory, they don't necessarily know, they're not let in on what activities they're being used for, but you can imagine, getting resources and sustaining resources for distributed denial of service attacks becomes incredibly feasible. And not only that, but because again the victims are participatory, they might even deny the fact that there is malicious software on the computer. Now, this is one area that, again, because it's so difficult to track, there's very little evidence that makes the news. There were a couple of cases in 2015 where certain business traveling hotels were identified as having staff that were a part of some physical act, like compromising laptop computers left unattended in rooms, not stealing the computer, but actually installing malware. Again, the instruction is insert USB, turn the thing on, remove USB, put it back where you found it. So again, hard to track, but there was a little bit of evidence in 2015 that this was a trend and an expansion on the normal malware activity. So with security, as always, it's as the defender gets better at what they do, or I should say the defender makes it more expensive or less feasible for the attacker has to innovate and find other means. Authentication is one of these things where I think we've actually gotten a little better in 2015 with authentication, particularly to large SaaS offerings on the internet. And so the attackers have no choice but to start attacking the re-authentication schemes. And we've seen a lot of that over the past years. The trend was pretty evident in 2015. The idea is that not all of your email addresses are equal. So there is an email address that you submit to systems on the internet for password recovery. And it's incredibly important that you keep that particular email address and account secure, because if the attacker, again, gets access to that, they can go to all of your accounts and actually invoke the forget password and reset your password before you get in. And of course, this is a bad thing. So there were, a couple of cases in 2014 and continuing on into 2015 where systems were compromised because of the re-authentication or forget password type of process. There is really no standard here. And frankly, the scary thing is that, on a Friday, an irate customer calling in representing you, customer service wants to do what is right for the customer, and sometimes that means the compromise of your account. So, we're going to continue seeing this trend. Why? Because inherently, humans want to be helpful, particularly in the role of customer service and help desk. But we're going to have to learn the hard way that, on certain issues, we're going to have to fail closed and fail hard. And no matter how unhappy somebody gets that they can't get back into their account, they're not going to be able to socially get their way. And so this is again something we saw evidence of in 2015 that I think we got incredibly right. Um, the business of ransomware, right? That's what's difficult right now. The problem is at a high level, the problem is that our law enforcement isn't really set up to go chasing down these small incidents. This you could consider is the long tail of computer crime, and so the adversary here, the attacker, has learned that they can make good money here. It's incredibly profitable, and it's actually expanding. So we've seen expansion in 2015, as we predicted, to other platforms. We've even just seen the actual CryptoLocker and other types of toolkits double in size in terms of their effectiveness, not the defender's effectiveness. Now, interestingly enough, this type of attack is preventable, but it's, we don't always consider backups as a security thing. But frankly, if we were to consider this just a hard drive failure or a storage unit failure, we would have the proper countermeasure. I'm a big fan of online backups. They're convenient. I have a whole family, unfortunately, that I'm the help desk for them. I'm not always at my home location, but again, systems like CrashPlan, pick whatever SaaS you want. You can get some pretty secure online backups that are incredibly feasible. I will tell you right now, economically, it is cheaper to pay the yearly subscription for your family than to actually pay the ransom for any one incident. You may actually be unfortunate enough to experience multiple incidents of this ransomware per year. So, again, my advice, strongly recommend you get a disaster recovery plan that involves some kind of backup. And when I mean some kind of backup, I mean an effective backup. So again, the cloud storage has made it so convenient. You install a client, pay the money, and basically forget about it until you need it. And when you need it, it's just quick to come back from the dead there. So again, we were pretty spot on with this expansion on multiple platforms, and again, the countermeasure is evolving too. I really think if you want to hurt this business for these ransomware guys, just back your stuff up and proceed as you would. Okay, this is a little different, and this is the one that we really saw coming in 2015, and I think the Ashley Madison and even the Sony breach were incredible poster childs of this extortionware type of situation. So here, I will say that the difference between sort of the extortionware versus ransomware is, in the case of ransomware, the adversary, at least in the pure sense, isn't actually interested in obtaining your data. They just want to keep you from it. So, they cryptographically lock it from you. No data is really taken. So they don't actually have the information. Whereas in extortionware, they actually have taken the information, meaning the information is in their possession. And let me point out a subtle point here. Unlike physical theft, with information, if I steal this file from you, you still have it. Okay, so I want to make that point because some of the laws of economics are screwed up in modeling because of this sort of non-rival property. So, again, in the case of extortionware, the adversary has taken sensitive information, and unless you pay them a certain fee, they will publish this widely, right? Um, and some of this information, again, could be damaging to yourself, to the reputation of the business, whatever it may be. And boy, we did see a lot of this stuff in 2015, unfortunately. I don't see how this doesn't expand in 2016. So although this is kind of a retrospective look at what we predicted, I don't see this actually slowing down. All right, so here we are. Yeah, I too can't believe that 2015 is coming to a close, but 2016's out there, and here we go. So, again, the trends that we see hopefully will point to some of these predictions. And again, while we go through this, in the back of my head, and I'm always thinking of, well, how is this going to be measurable? What does the manifestation of this look like? Because again, in 2017, I'm going to be on a webinar like this, doing a retrospective for 2016. So all through the year, I'll be sort of collecting evidence. All right. So, everyone knows that the battle in cryptography is crypto analytics. The idea that cryptography is just a deferment of disclosure. It's never a sort of permanent type of solution, meaning all cryptographic means can be broken. It's just the question is how long does it take, how much compute power, how feasible will it be to discover this secret, this information. And so a couple of things come together here. One is the fact that there are incredible compute farms out there that were set up, particularly in other nation states, to do Bitcoin mining. And I'm talking about just incredible amount of compute power. And again, the Bitcoin mining industry, is kind of slowing down there because they're, getting to, relatively speaking, all of what could be mined out of that number space. But it's time for them again to reinvent themselves. So, the idea here is very simple. What we have is the access to incredible compute power conveniently through a SaaS service. So the idea would be that an application on your phone, or let's say some kind of plugin, let's say that you get a web key that you need to crack. You literally just submit it to this cloud service, and it runs through just an incredible amount of parallel processing and maybe even some dictionaries, and it gives you back the match or the collision or the plain text, if you will, and maybe it costs you a few cents to do, right? So the idea is that this is sort of a trend that's brought together by not only the capability space of what's happening with these cracking farms, but the convenience factor of software as a service. So definitely going to see this make more of a debut in 2016. Another thing that's happening, maybe never before happened, that we think is going to at least show a face in 2016 is the fact that there are an incredible amount of services. I don't know if any of you on the webinar have been sent coupons to go and do a DNA search, but a lot of them are given as gifts, meaning you buy something from one of these services to find out your medical history, or your DNA sequencing into your heritage. Simply put, it comes as a kit. You basically swab your cheeks. You put it in the thing. You send it. They have the results, and then you live as an entity within their database. And as new things come up, they flag you. Maybe a relative actually does this type of DNA sequencing, and you get a match, or it may be actually biomarkers for diseases. So, you actually they find a biomarker related to, let's say, diabetes or something, and from now until the end of time, you're made aware of this stuff. So again, they hold your DNA there as criteria, and then as new information presents itself into the future, you're made aware of its relevance. Okay, so why is this kind of different? Well, here's the one thing about this type of information is, it's one thing to have your credit card disclosed and compromised, because the measure to fix that is essentially swapping out, changing the credit card number, right? So at one end of the spectrum you have this sort of very mutable type of information that's been disclosed or compromised, and you can change it. A middle ground there, I would say, is something like Social Security. I mean, while it can be changed, it's an incredible pain in the ass. So I don't know if you can actually change it more than a certain amount of times in a lifetime, but it's one of those pieces of information where, if disclosed or used a certain way, changing it is incredibly hard, but still feasible. So I'll put that in the middle of the spectrum, and then you have DNA information on you, who is actually, a part of who you are. This cannot be changed, meaning, it is who you are. So if this is actually attached to disease, and that has some kind of repercussion on future employment, the cost of insurance, things like that, it's not like you can go back and resequence your DNA. I mean, even if you could, the results of that would be not really desirable, I would think. And we're not talking X-Men here. So it's a big concern. And did it exist in 2014, 2015? I don't think, not to the degree that it will exist in 2016. So this is something we're going to keep an eye on, right? One of these sites getting breached, and again, maybe even being used for extortionware, is going to be incredible in the coming years. So keep your eye on this. All right, the last two here is going to require a little bit of an explanation, and we'll just take it slow. Okay, so when I say attacks on the overlay network, I'm essentially talking about software-defined networking and some of the opportunity space it presents to attackers. So the overlay network, again, is the value proposition, really, of what SDN brings to the table. The idea that back in the day, there was no overlay network. So the characteristics of the network, meaning your subnets, your collision domains for layer 2, all of those really define the topology. And so it was really the job of a network architect to try and match the topology to the business. And you can see, as the business changes, network architects suffer, because they're playing with such a static element, and changing the topology sometimes has adverse effects. Making a flat network not so flat can oftentimes break some of the business functionality. So everybody's kind of nervous to doing this. Lo and behold, SDN gets invented, and now you can just overlay whatever you want the logical and physical topology, and just be as adaptive to the business as possible. Okay, so that's sort of that gets us to what the overlay network is, and why it's actually a growing trend over the years, and why everybody's all really, really excited about SDN. It hasn't, the fact is it hasn't been attacked enough. At this point in time, there just hasn't been enough exploitation in the different manifestations of SDN. So the one that I just call your attention to, because it is so popular, because some of the people using it don't even know that they're using it, is some of the VXLAN tagging in containerization or Docker. So Docker is a container userland sort of virtualization that I hope you're familiar with. If not, I would definitely Google Docker and figure out what it is. It's a part of what is called microarchitectures, and the networking side of this gets really, really messy, because while things get real simple at the application layer, things get overly complicated at the network layer. And to get around this, here comes overlay networks to the rescue. And so you have this thing called VXLAN tagging, which is exactly as it sounds. It's a tagging strategy, much like many of the overlay networks are going to have some kind of tagging strategy. And the exploitation of this tagging strategy is somewhat unexplored. So I can see a lot of caches and a lot of authentication issues, or I should say authenticity issues, with this type of tagging. Getting a hold of a particular tag, or even manufacturing the right tag, may actually get you access into a segment of the network that, frankly, you're not supposed to be there. So, I say it's ripe for targeting. The mere fact is, we're going to have to see a lot of bug bounties, if you will, or just exploration here, so that this type of technology can evolve. I think that the ones that are more exploited are going to evolve faster. I'm not saying anything new here. This is exactly what happens to applications and an operating system. So this, I think, is going to be very easy to track. And frankly, I don't think it's just VXLAN and Docker that is going to be a target here. Just keep your eye on any type of SDN technology. I don't necessarily think it's going to be the controllers that'll be targeted. I really think it's going to be the protocols themselves. So we'll keep an eye on that and watch out this plays out. So the last on the list, again, kind of goes back to the evolution of virtualization, and probably worth taking a little bit of time setting this one up. So, back in the day, there was no virtualization, right? You wanted to run an application or a service, you bought boxes, and you deployed boxes in data centers, and everything was incredibly physical, right? So, I grew up in that era, and when virtualization showed up, I'm like, oh my God, this is awesome. So enter the days of Zen and still VMware, where you have virtualization through hypervisors, and even as far back as the maybe 2006 or 2007, we saw a lot of exploitation on the hypervisor, by which in Zen, if you can compromise DOM0, basically all the guest instances on the hypervisor could be compromised. And so that was the battle that was fought, where the battleground was essentially the hypervisor. And it's still a battleground today, but the new battleground is Namespace. So in the case of Docker or Rocket or any type of userland type of virtualization, where you're talking about containers. The battleground is the namespace, and really there are three namespaces that come into play here: the process namespace, the networking namespace, and the file system namespace. And basically, exploitation within these realms, I think, are going to be a trend. And the reason being is, simply put, if you're not careful, let's say that I have a bunch of machines that are hosting Docker containers, and so instead of in a healthy microarchitecture environment, instead of getting another web server there, I just instantiate a container that has everything the web server needs. And in fact, I don't even know, given orchestration, I may not even know what machine it's going to run on, because all I specify is essentially my service levels with the orchestrator, something like Kubernetes or whatever you may want there. But in the end, I'm dealing with the fact that I have a bunch of containers that are being orchestrated to provide a service. Okay. Now, if any one of those containers are compromised, let's say, for instance, we're talking about the process ID space within a container. If the malicious container has something running as UID 0 or root, and it's being instantiated or shared on a system whereby that particular namespace is being shared, then that UID 0 becomes the system's UID 0, and you have compromise at the root level, which is never what you want. So again, a simple example, but I can go on and on. Sharing in the namespace of the networking means that essentially you're able to sniff anything that's in that particular shared space. And again, file systems here and there. We all know what sometimes a compromised file can do on a system. So I do think this is again a new battleground that's going to require countermeasures. It's going to require timely detection, accurate detection, a bunch of accounting, and ultimately some kind of cryptographic assurance on the integrity of these things. I know a company called CoreOS has got a lot of cryptographic assurance methods, from even a cold boot all the way through the production cycle. So think of a machine being powered on and given a level of cryptographic assurance, and as these containers instantiate themselves on whatever machine, there's literally a cryptographic handoff whereby the integrity of these containers are held, and that sort of chain of custody and things that it's all new, right? And in terms of the actual implementation and manifestation, but it's all old in terms of these are just the principles we've used since from the 70s, right? And we just can't forget about some of these fundamentals. And so this prediction is really about taking this sort of old principle and playbook and making sure that it happens to new technology. This technology is advancing so quickly and so fast. I'm willing to say that that in 2016 we're going to see some activity in this area regarding some major security things. And again, when these become evident, things get the right visibility and they get fixed. So from a bad thing comes evolution, I guess. Okay, so I'm going to go and kind of conclude here, and then we'll open it up for questions for sure. So let's take our time and go through this. So I'm always of the mindset that don't apply old, ineffective approaches to new technologies. Again, I'm sure you on the phone remember the days when when VMware made the scene and people were talking about, patch management for their virtual machines. And the classic example of not being able to make that leap, meaning the virtual machines allowed you to snapshot, checkpoint, kind of definitely treat them as ephemeral, and not this sort of very persistent thing that you had to care for back in the physical day. But the idea that you would apply patch management to the virtual machines like you did the physical machines was just ludicrous. I mean, it was as awkward as back in the day when they invented the mechanical plows and had to put bull or cowhide on the thing just so that there was a reference to the past. So I would say that as we look at things like overlay networks and we look at things like containerization and microarchitectures, that we look at new methods of detection and protection and authenticity and things of that nature. So definitely space for innovation there. More sensitive data and new types of sensitive data are being connected to the internet every day. So everybody talks about Internet of Things. What nobody's talking about is there's just as much of an expansion on the data types that are being connected to the network. Okay? They're not really wanting to steal the hard drive. They're wanting to steal the data on it. So again, we know how to protect it. There's sound mathematics behind the protection of data. So it's just a matter of making sure we apply that early and often. And lastly, attackers will adapt to new technologies, new data, and it is the coevolution between attacker and defender. And I sincerely, mean that. It doesn't take a crystal ball to see that, as you, the defender, make it harder in certain areas for attackers, the attackers are forced to innovate in other areas. And, I've been at this over 20 years now. It hasn't changed. I mean, this is just how the game is played. So it's not difficult to actually extrapolate from that and do some kind of predictive statements, assertions for a 12-month period, which is exactly what we're doing. It is the same old game being played over and over again as the battleground changes. So with that, I will go ahead and take questions.
Thanks for that great webcast. We do have some questions ready for the Q&A session. However, if anyone has a question for TK, please enter it into the questions window now. Our first question is, do you have any good or trustworthy suggestions for cloud backup?
I would, it comes down to, I mean, this is something very real for me, right? I have a bunch of kids, and some of them are off in college, and even if that machine fails, guess whose problem it is to fix, right? Dad gets a call, and Dad has to fix it. So I will, forever be the help desk for my family. Having said that, I go out and just figure out, how expensive is it, how convenient is it, and how secure is it? So let's take them one by one, right? Most of them are in terms of how expensive it is, most of them are very competitive. And again, it has to kind of, whether you're actually just securing your own multiple devices, or let's say you have a family of devices. Sometimes you can buy these family packs that have unlimited backup up to 20 devices, and that year over year is actually pretty feasible for my needs. So on the price side, it's really competitive. So you're gonna find a good price no matter what. On the convenience side, again, you want to make sure that these solutions just basically you run an installer and that's basically it. They just run on their own. Just make sure that the systems you want backed up, that that they give you reports, on a daily, weekly basis, however you want them, or what's been backed up, how much's been backed up, whether there's any problems. You just want to, as a single help desk person, you want to lower your administrative costs there. So again, I off the top of my head, the top 3 cloud backup systems out there, they all function pretty much the same. And then the last thing is security. The question is, if my data is stored remotely, is it encrypted, or do I need to actually encrypt the things that that I feel sensitive even before I put it out there? And there, again, I would say, your paranoia will vary, right? So if you're incredibly paranoid like I am, you're going to be using a file system already that is encrypting files. And then even when backed up, it's the data's going to be safe. These certain online backup systems offer their own encryption on top of that, and again, it doesn't cost you any more compute or anything like that. So again, pick your vendor wisely. My point in all of this, though, is I tell you, it's a totally missed opportunity for marketing for these guys, because they could sell so much more if they went out and said, we protect you from CryptoLocker or ransomware. I mean, seriously, it is cheaper to pay a yearly subscription to any one of these people than it is for you to pay any number of, even just one ransom. So that really was my point in 2015.
Okay, thank you. With more and more cloud-based services coming into the market, what are some steps that should be used to protect both the company and our connections to these cloud-based systems?
Whew. Yeah, that's job one is really getting your arms around the universe of cloud-based services that your business is using. I really say that's job one, because it scopes the problem, right? It's not everything you have to worry about all at once. It's just what is active, and frankly, a lot of people just don't know. So, I would definitely put in the monitoring you would need to actually do that accounting, meaning to answer the question on a daily basis, what are the cloud services that my company is using? If you can't produce any evidence there, frankly, it's very hard to move to the next step. So, given the list of cloud services that are being used, I would say from there you're able to manage the problem on an ongoing basis. Meaning, once you have all the services that you're going to need to protect, maybe some of them you don't, but once you have that list, you're able to put in the right controls. So, having said that, I really think it's a shift in mindset, which is, the defenders kind of caught flat-footed, because for the most of their working life, they've been used to thinking about everything within these walls, or this enterprise I protect. And that mindset actually is no longer valid. It is actually everything the business uses I need to protect. Okay, and that actually extends itself to not only your data centers but other data centers. And so putting in the right type of telemetry, if you will, is job one. After that, putting the right countermeasures and controls around the evidence you find in that telemetry is going to be your sort of ongoing plan. And I say ongoing because, on a quarter-by-quarter basis, or even on a monthly basis, you're going to want to reevaluate that. If you're like every other business in this industry these days, you're evolving much faster than most of your monitoring can tell you. So, definitely think about it as an ongoing process and not just one snapshot in time.
Thank you. Thirdly, what type of threats do you think will be the most prevalent in 2016, and are insider threats still a concern?
Yeah, categorically, it's the threats that make the bad guys the most money, right? That's categorically that's just the trend, and by that I mean, it's cybercrime is basically a business, and they're trying to grow their business. So, it's just going to have a different manifestation um, across the across everything that's connected to the internet. So, you know, you could pick any type of target, and I could tell you um, that it may be used for their purposes. So, you look at law offices, there are documents in there that negotiate a future business event, and with an advantage there, there's going to be a lot of money to be made. So, one PDF file, two PDF files in a law office might be more important than an entire database full of credit cards. So it's really hard to really pinpoint some of the exact threats. But I will tell you that our predictions in 2016 are around things that are not so obvious. Let's let everybody else kind of trend on the obvious. But I spent some time really kind of thinking about what is the thing that people are not talking about yet. And let's keep an eye on that in 2016. There was a second part to that question that I don't remember.
It was, are insider threats still a concern?
Yeah, so that, yes, I mean, yes, full stop. Um, I don't think we have the luxury anymore to say insider or outsider. I think if you do, you might be missing a whole lot of opportunity. The fact of the matter is that it may not be the malicious intent of a person that has um, entitlement on your network. It may be that they are compromised in a way by which their credentials have been stolen. From a technical standpoint, they're an insider. They have the right authentication and entitlement to get to certain types of data or to make changes to data that affect the business. And so that trend, I think, the idea of credential abuse has exploded over the past couple years. I've been quoted in saying that attackers no longer break into networks; they just simply log into networks. And that really, think about it, because that really changes the profile by which you do detection. So if all of your security systems are waiting for the bad event to happen, the attack, that attack never happens because the credentials were stolen at somewhere else, and the attacker, the adversary, isn't actually setting off alarms. They're just inside your network, moving around, and planning their exfiltration, or planning their ransomware, or planning their extortionware. This is just the reality we live in today.
Thank you. How do you see data and analytics becoming more integrated into network security in 2016?
Yeah, I think that is, when you walk around a trade show, something as large as RSA, or everybody's talking about security analytics, and the reason why they are, everybody's using that same term is the consumers, the customers, the defenders, if you will, they're absolutely drowning in data. I mean, they have more data than they can make sense of, right? So, analytics is a way by which data is transformed into information. I'm just throwing that definition out there because I want to make sure the semantics are clear here. The importance of analytics is essentially necessary or made necessary because of the volumetric data just that's occurring. Every single piece of telemetry that's being collected, and machines do great at data. Humans do very poorly at large volumes, and I'm talking about incredibly large volumes. So this whole big data thing really is, the only reason it has value is because the appropriate amount of analytics have been put on it, and humans operate at the information level where they are informed by the data through the analytics to make better decisions. And again, the decision may be to do nothing, but in the end, I just want to point out that we as humans don't deal with data very well. So analytics is really the answer. No matter what data sets you're synthesizing together, it holds true in not only security, but we've seen it hold true in the medical industry and manufacturing and everything else.
Okay, thank you. What is your primary concern in regards to emerging threats?
My primary concern is, when you've been doing it as long as I have, you just see things happen over and over again, and you kind of sit around scratching your head saying, I don't really want to go back to the 70s when, we had this particular type of problem, right? Let's try and evolve. So when I look at some of the things that are being exploited, or I look at things like, the Internet of Things, my biggest concern is let's learn from history, and let's not let a manufacturer coming to the market that's putting their product onto the internet, let's not have them make the same mistakes we did in the 80s and 90s. At the very least, let's just start them here. And that's my biggest concern is it's not just desktops and even mobile that we're protecting these days. We have tea kettles and crock pots and cars and all of these things that are being connected to the internet that haven't learned their lessons yet. And that's really my biggest concern is I just want to try and get out in front of that problem and start them off in 2015 and 2016. I don't want them to start off in 1990 again, and we see that movie all over again. That makes me sick to my stomach.
Okay, thank you. And with that, we're out of questions. Thank you so much, TK, for your great presentation, and Lancope for sponsoring this webcast, which helps bring this content to the SANS community. To our audience, we greatly appreciate you listening in. For a schedule of all upcoming and archived SANS webcasts, including this one, you can visit sans.org/webcasts. Until next time, take care, and we hope to have you back again for the next SANS webcast.